talking about is essentially a myth. We don't have any real hard facts to back it up, and myths have been used by cultures throughout time to perform various functions, explain why the wind blows, or explain moral lessons, or just to keep the kids, you know, the boogeyman will get you, don't go in the woods.
Evidently can pop in and out. That's what I said. You're not dealing with just, whoo, I saw a nice little Bigfoot today. Wrong, guys. This is something from another dimension.
What I saw was a dark creature of some sort, a human-like creature walking very fluidly across a patch of woods, about 20-year growth. Personally, I knew that it was something that I knew was a Bigfoot, but I didn't say anything for about 4 years.
As it's putting its hand down to climb upwards, it's pressing the muscle out, it's expanding muscle that's in the fingers.
We just locked eyes, and its eyes were just this most fluorescent type green. I'll never forget that because they were just really beautiful.
She said, well, that's a skull of a lowland gorilla fetus. It was probably born dead. She just discarded it. And she said, what part of Africa did you find this? And I said, it wasn't Africa, it was Pennsylvania.
Some evidence to suggest that Bigfoot's here. There's some very unusual things about Bigfoot.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me, though, about it is that this is, from all accounts, a fairly large animal, maybe 7-8 feet on the average tall. This is pretty hard kind of thing to keep hidden. I mean, how likely is it in this day and age, Brian, that we can go day to day without seeing Bigfoot more frequently? What's, you know...
Well, it's certainly not impossible that the species doesn't exist, and that's given that we're discovering species every day, new species even now. And back in the 1970s, I think it was the National Geographic Society had done a survey on the discoveries that have been made, and there are so many discoveries, thousands in fact, that are made each year. And just to give a few numbers, there's 5,000 insects, 15 birds, 100 fish, 50 animals, 15 reptiles discovered in any given year. Just recently, I think it was in 1994, and I believe we have a picture of it. It's a ice borer, and it's got a hot plate on the upper part of its head. It looks like almost like a beaver type of species, and it can actually melt the ice. And how it was discovered was a penguin was sinking through this ice up in the Antarctic, and they pulled the penguin out. A researcher did pull the penguin out, and there at the bottom of the penguin are a bunch of these ice borers. Jeez. And it's another case where a species has been unknown for probably thousands of years.
Yeah.
In the 1960s and 1970s, you had a rash of sightings all across the country. There isn't one state in the Union that didn't have some kind of sighting of a creature, a large hairy creature. All of a sudden, you're not getting that anymore. But these cases back in the 60s, they made the UP news wires, AP news wires. There was a reason why the 60s and 70s we saw this. And maybe it was escape from the Vietnam era. It was some kind of sociological enigma that nobody has ever figured out yet.
Is this sort of like war nerves or something like that?
Yeah.
Why is it? I mean, the basic question everyone wants to know is, why don't we have better evidence? Where is Bigfoot? Where's the body of Bigfoot? How has he managed to stay away from us so effectively when we've got 10 million people in Ohio?
Well, that's a good question. And
I mean, I'm asking,
it comes up to the possibility of the paraphysical thing again. I mean, it would take large amounts of food for something like this to eat.
Absolutely.
But also, on the other hand, have you ever been out to the Wayne National Forest? There's 3 separate parts in the state of Ohio, and it's very vast. It's something that I believe something could hide out there.
Yeah, as we're talking about the habitat, more or less, of Bigfoot, I think it's kind of important to note that in Mr. Birt's investigations, in the area of Urbana and Bell Fountain, there's a tremendous amount of caves. And as you look into it, you'll start to see a connection between caves and Bigfoot, and even with swamp areas. In fact, up near Urbana, again, you have the Cedar Bog, which is not a normal occurrence in Ohio, just as the caves aren't. When we think of western and central Ohio, we just think of it as being flat, yet wherever Bigfoot is sighted, it's a different type of terrain than what we're used to.
What about Ray Emerson, the guy we found? You talked to him on the phone, didn't you?
The theory was that the Bigfoots drag their dead back into caves so that they're not found.
But also, didn't Emerson say he was in possession of a report that was done by, I don't know, the military and the Corps of Engineers, and I forget who all, that said that there was a nationwide connected cave system or something?
It was an alleged
unsubstantiated again.
2,000-page report done by a joint task force for strategic purposes.
He claims, didn't he tell us that this had something to do with Bigfoot, that they'd found remnants of Bigfoot in some of the caves?
Yes.
And that was part of his contention that was in the report. There are a tremendous amount of anecdotes out there that are very interesting.
Well, we had come out camping as a family because we love to do that. We were here middle of June in 1995, and it had been a really nice day. It was hot and humid, very sunny. It was starting to become dusk. It was not dark. We had a campfire going, and I was starting to prepare dinner. My husband and children decided to take a hike while I was finishing the meal. I was sitting on a park bench, a picnic bench like I am now, with my back to the creek, and I heard a noise behind me, and it was different from all the other sounds that was around me. A larger thump type sound, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So I got up and turned around to face where the noise had come from, and I see a creature, and it was sitting on a rock in the creek, and it was squatted down about like this. Its arms were very long, almost ape-like looking. It had dark colored hair, no clothing. And one thing that was very, very noticeable to me was we just locked eyes, and its eyes were just this most fluorescent type green. I'll never forget that because they were just really beautiful. So at this point, I go around the picnic table because I don't want to turn my back because I don't know what it is or what to do. So I turn around and I sit like this. And then I take out a knife to cut this cheese because I wanted to have something in my hand for protection just in case. At that point, I hear my husband and children coming back from their hike, and they're coming from that trail over there. So I get up. At this point, our eyes are still locked. I back up, we're still locked. I start to walk over this way, still in view of the creature. And I turn around and I yell to them, "Come here, come quick, come here, you gotta see this." By the time I turned back around, it was gone.
I was inside the house, inside of that door.
Looking out the door.
Looking out that door. Okay. And I had a dog there. He was standing on right there by the porch. And he was just carrying on. Like when I opened the door and turned the light on, he was standing right here. Stood there for a few, probably 10 seconds, and then took off and went that direction.
Went out to that way.
Went out that tree, past that tree, broke a branch off up there. I would say that's probably where it's at, because it broke the branch off. He measured it. What'd you say, it was 8 foot something?
8 foot and 1 inch.
And real broad across the chest like, and it's all hair from head to his toes. And it was sort of on his body, his hair, I couldn't really tell, but I would say it's probably 4 or 5 inches long. But on his head, it's longer. Because when the light shines, you can see his eyes and things, the glowing light, off a light on the house. So I figured you could see after dark pretty good. It didn't stay here probably about 10 seconds to talk to him. And that's when I got a hold of Reverend here, and he come out and took pictures. And I knew nobody believed me. They didn't.
Now, one of the things that is really fascinating about all this is the fact that there's a paranormal aspect to Bigfoot.
And we'll get into that later.
We're going to get into it here probably in just a moment and just touch base on it. I've talked to several big-time investigators, and they're really fascinated by the fact that people shoot Bigfoot and report that it disappears in a ball of light. Their footprints stop in like soft sandy dirt and just stop. Okay. And there's plenty of room for them to go on and other things along that line. There's all kinds of people that associate them with UFOs and very bizarre content to many of the stories. They certainly seem to have a superhuman capability, a paraphysical capability at times. And there's 2 camps, which I think a lot of people think it's a physical, real animal. Right. And and really only 10% or so of the cases are this paraphysical business. But I mentioned earlier we talked to a lady that talked about having seen Bigfoot with some of her neighbors and the paraphysical nature of that.
I mean, these things can tromp right beside you, and you won't see it. You hear him walk right now. It was real dry that day, and this is where it happened. And you hear the leaves, but you don't see him. You don't see his body. Now, how is that possible? Did. Happened all the time here. We've got used to it. The things absolutely do not have to show themselves. Or this one night when Jim Mosley, he now lives in Florida, and he and I went together and bought a movie camera. He says, okay, now Bet, if we get a picture, we get to split the glory, okay? And I was okay. So we were sitting up here on this road about 2 in the morning, had us a blanket spread out in our coffee, and you could hear him cross the creek. And he says, God, Bet, says, I've never seen a Bigfoot. He says, is that what it is? And I said, yeah. And I said, just be quiet, just sit here and wait. Best thing you can do. I said, they won't hurt you. They certainly haven't hurt me. And we watched it come across. We were sitting up there. See where that car is? Well, we were sitting right out from that, right on the road. So it came from right over in there, that big pile of logs. And we heard it hit the water and splash. Didn't see anything. All we heard was that it just felt like a big rhino hitting that water. And it come across the creek, and right as it came up, it materialized. We saw something black. And he said, my God, and it jumped behind this tree, and he says, what was that? And I said, that was the Bigfoot. That was. So you see, they evidently can pop in and out. That's what I said. You're not dealing with just, whoo, I saw a nice little Bigfoot today. Wrong, guys. This is something from another dimension.
Reverend Birt, in your experiences, which also span 2 decades at least, have you come across any of the kind of evidence that we're talking about, maybe some use of caves, covering tracks?
One of the places where we often went to search for Bigfoot, and where an area where a lot of the reports came from, does contain a lot of caves, and it's a very unusual part of the country, and just like we were talking on the way up here, basically farmland and flatland, and here's probably 5 square miles in here, that limestone cliffs, beautiful creek, all woods, filled with caves. When I was a boy, it was considered a haven for bobcats. I found cougar tracks there recently.
On March 23, 1995, an investigation was made by the Associates for Scientific Knowledge into the reports of a mysterious creature roaming the forests of central Ohio. Investigators combed nearly 10 acres of woodland where witnesses claimed to have spotted strange man-like creatures prowling in the night, searching for any clues that may have been left behind.
We're looking for Bigfoot, evidence of Bigfoot, and it's to satisfy my curiosity anyhow is just what it is. I've heard it make 3 different sounds, scream and grunt and kind of a yip or a yap like a small dog. When it yips or yaps, it almost sounds as though it might be a form of communication. At one time I heard 2 of them, and they were separated by some distance, and this was going back and forth. Yippity yippity yap over here, and then yippity yippity yap over here, kind of a reply back and forth. And we don't know about sex for sure, whether they are male or females. It's assumed that there is. I do have a report of a family of 5 walking across an open field of various sizes, one even being carried in the arms of another. The one that was carrying the small one was said to be the smaller of the adults and was assumed to be the mother. It seems like there's every possibility that there might even be family units.
In the recent past, many witnesses have reported observing the strange creatures in these woodlands on several occasions. The investigators looking into the area for solid physical evidence began to stumble upon traces of something curious.
We may have walked by something we ought to give some more consideration to. Down along the fence line there, where whatever it was vomited, it vomited on both sides of the fence. And it's like this. How tall does that creature have to be, or what kind of a creature is it? What in this woods could have done that?
Associates for Scientific Knowledge investigator George Clappison made further analysis of the region, which also revealed more unusual discoveries.
Well, it looks like the scat of some animal. Exactly which animal remains to be determined, but it's definitely in a strange spot, about 4.5 feet off the ground. It's a large quantity, so it rules out animals like raccoons or possums. I mean, we're talking that's a healthy animal right there. And it looks like you can see remnants of corn, and you can also see some fibers. It looks like it might be animal hair.
I picked this up off the ground about 5 foot from where I'm standing right now, and it appears to be residue that an animal of some type has chewed up and then spit out. There's quite a few spots of it around here. There's a couple right over there, some right over in here. Quite a bit of it. As if this was either a feeding ground or a spot where an animal has been going out and bringing its food in here and eating it.
Plans are made to recover the material found so that DNA testing can be done later.
You guys want a sample of this? There's plenty there.
Yep. Well, that's a possibility there.
As the material is packaged for further analysis, other members of the team, searching several yards away, make a startling discovery.
Is there any, do we have toe prints?
Yes.
A footprint found in the mud. The most telling sign yet of something truly unusual.
Here's his heel. I didn't want to move the leaves because we'd stepped on them.
What color are you painting?
Now this is apparently hair. It'll have to be checked out, but apparently it's hair. And it's been here for a while because some of it was underneath the leaf fall. We had to move leaves to get to the hair. This is feces from an animal. It's too large to be a raccoon. This is more the size of human. And we'll take it back and have them checked out.
Members of the team believe they have found something that warrants further investigation.
All over the place.
These samples will go straight to the DNA lab, and they will be compared with our other samples that are on file now. And we're trying to be careful here not to get any human contact to eliminate the possibility of contamination.
Satisfied with their findings, the team packed up and prepared to leave. But no sooner than they had moved to depart because of imminent darkness, that more bizarre footprints were found.
Right down here over the hill, we've got the, looks like a three-toed print. It doesn't seem quite as wide in the toe area as the other three-toed prints that we have, but it definitely looks similar to a human print, except much larger and with only 3 toes that are straight across the front.
Members of the investigative team were alarmed at the print.
Well, that's scary.
The heel.
Ooh, that's
And the possible size of what made it.
Yeah, look at this. Toes. Possible arch. Other side of the foot. Possibly a heel. Mashed down right in this area here. You're probably talking about something, I would say, in excess of 6 feet anyway. Possibly 7 to 7.5. I don't think it's recent if you're talking about within the last few weeks or month or two, because if this had been made in the soil as soft as it is around here, I think it would have sunk in a little more. I'd say maybe last fall or sometime during the winter. We're back in the field. This particular branch right here is broken down close to the fork. I could probably break that branch if I had it in my hand and could push it over my knee. But I don't think I could, in fact I know I couldn't walk up and just take one hand like this and snap it off. I couldn't do that.
This is still alive.
Yeah. But this is also hedge apple. This is a hedge apple tree. And hedge apple wood's just a little bit harder than some of your other woods.
Broken tree limbs, material deposits, hair specimens, and footprints are telling indications that something unusual and unknown may have recently inhabited this forest in central Ohio. Are these traces explainable to natural elements or wildlife in the region? Or are they indicative of something truly bizarre?
Since the mid-70s, we began to get the idea about that time that there was something different going on, but it probably was 1979 before we really knew what was happening in that area. And one of the first sightings that we had was at the Simpson farm where this woods is that we've been watching on the film clip. And it was on a Saturday. It was in October. It's October 7th, I believe. Young Mr. Simpson had gone back to the woods to bring up a tractor loaded with wood. He had a tractor wagon back there. They'd been cutting wood through the weeks and had it loaded, and it was his job to go back and bring that up and unload it and put it in its place. And like any other teenager, he kind of just meandered back the lane as he went back to the woods, and he heard a little noise, and he looked up, and right at the edge of the woods there was something standing there that he'd never seen before. And it screamed about 3 times and ran back into the woods, and he turned around and went back to the house. Got him a cup of coffee, sat down at the table, and he wouldn't say a word. It took his mother an hour to get him to speak and say what had happened, and then she called me, and I went out with the cameras, and we went back into the woods. We did find some prints, and we photographed the prints. I tried to write a description of what they were, because I really didn't know. The only thing we could think of was bear, you know, but we'd never seen any bears in this part of the country before.
So you feel that this is a highly credible case? You can vouch for the witnesses?
Yeah, very much. I'm well acquainted with the people, and there'd been some happenings out in that area, you know, prior to this, that we knew something different was happening, but we didn't know what.
Okay.
Like all the blackberries disappearing and all the apples off the tree disappearing.
And it wasn't just the neighborhood kids, huh?
No, too many apples.
With most of the so-called authentic cases of Bigfoot footprints, they're not what we would normally think of as a footprint, being that they're not a perfect foot outline,
Right.
which is some see as evidence of it being genuine, and that the fact that no one walks the exact same way with each step.
This cast came out of Simpson's wood, and the size of the foot pretty much matches
Give me that.
the size of the creature that they were talking about. And as he was saying, the importance of stride is important because that has to match too, and that was there. But I have some prints that I took in the snow at the Triad Elementary School about 1980.
Yeah.
And this was in March, and it warmed up a little bit and the snow had melted, and then that night it snowed. It began snowing about 2 o'clock, and we checked the time of the snow at the airport in Urbana, so it began to snow about 2 o'clock. It snowed about 1 inch, and just enough to make real good footprints. And these were 17 inches long, and they were 6 inches wide, and they run about a mile and a half in length. And they come across the road and made a loop around to one end of a little woods that's there. They have a land lab that the high school students work in.
So I think it would be fair to say that that's a lot of work for someone to hoax, right? I mean, that's going to a lot of effort.
It's like he said, no footprint was alike. There might be 1 inch or 2 difference in the stride. They were not always placed down equally in the snow. This might be deeper, that might be deeper.
That is key.
Back in 1995, I was an animal control officer, and we done work with the Division of Wildlife, and I spoke with some people there about a project I was working on about Bigfoot in Ohio. Told them if they had anyone that had any information they could help me out with, it'd be great. They laughed about it and said no, there was nothing there, but I did receive a phone call from an individual who was a ranger for about 28 years with the Division of Wildlife, and gave me a really incredible story about 2 casts that he made from tracks that he has found in the Wayne National Forest area. One was in the southern part towards Adams County, the other one was about the central part of the forest. He was going down the road, was looking off to the right side of the road while he was in the vehicle. He saw a back of a creature which he thought was a bear. So he got out of his vehicle, was looking over at it. You know, it was probably about 50 yards away from where he was being very quiet. Like I said, the first thing he thought it was a bear because it was just the back of the animal that he saw, until the animal basically stood up and started walking to its right, and he never saw the face of the creature. All he saw was just the width of the back and the muscles in the back, no neck, short head, basically scared the hell out of him. Got in his vehicle, left, didn't mention it to anybody. Came back about 2 days later to the same area to see if he could see it again, and at that time, that's when he found footprints, and he was able to make a cast of the footprint. Division of Wildlife, they do carry plaster, water, and things like that to make casts, because they do track casting of you know, different animals in the state, so they can, you know, find out what animals are in the area, if there's any predators and so forth. So he was able to make a cast of the footprint of the first time of this, you know, he saw this thing. The second cast that I have is what he found a few weeks later in a different part of the state. He has seen footprints in that area, but he just really wasn't sure what they were. He never really noticed them. He never even thought about the existence of Bigfoot until he actually saw the creature itself, and, you know, was able to make cast of the evidence that he found. This is the cast that was taken from his sighting this after. As you can see on the cast here, it has the 5 toes to big toe, the second, third, fourth, and the baby toe. You can see here the ball of the foot, especially this area right here where it comes out, which is very, very typical on casts from all across the country. Down here to the heel, the cast broke, so it was trying to be repaired here. This was some type of foliage and stuff that was down in the ground from the footprint. But you can see it's a very flat foot. It's about 17 inches, 17.5 inches length, about 7 inches going across. The ankle I would have to say would have to be in this area here to support the weight of this creature, which he estimated to be about 400 or 500 pounds. The best of all the prints that were taken, didn't have a camera, was unable to get a picture of the footprint. This is what turned out, this is what he saw, so this is extremely good evidence that there's something there, especially coming from someone from the Division of Wildlife that states that, yeah, there's definitely something here. This is the second cast that was taken. As you can see, it's a smaller, fatter little foot. It's about 16 inches. The creature here was definitely heavier because the depth was a little further down than what was on the first cast. And you can basically see a little bit of hair on the side. You got the big toe, second, third, fourth, and fifth. The ball here going out on the side, but like I said, was very typical on a lot of the casts. A lot of foliage and stuff was in the ground here. What's so unique about this cast? It's a different creature than what was the first one that he found. This was found in a different part of the Wayne National Forest. But the only thing about these casts that make them all identical is the fact that they have this protruding part of the ball of the foot, as you can see here on these casts, are on all the casts that I have, that I found here in different parts of Ohio within the last 7 years of research that I've done.
Earlier we had discussed the dermal ridges. We didn't really have a chance to really dissect that a whole lot. Okay. Now, you're of the opinion that the dermal ridges, or the toe prints that are found in the castings of some of these Bigfoot footprints aren't genuine?
No, I don't believe they are, no. I think there's too many suspicious aspects of them. Like I said, lack of toe movement.
Right.
The arch not being in conjunction with the heel, and
inconsistencies in testimony.
Inconsistencies with the stride, inconsistency with the testimony, and the main thing is the way that it appeared at the area where the prints were cleared away of all the sticks and the brush and things like this.
So it's just too nicely laid out.
Yeah.
So we can kind of either reject this or reserve judgment until maybe some independent footprints come up that have dermal ridges as well?
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Okay.
About 10 months ago, through an acquaintance of mine, I was able to get a hold of 2 individuals in Adams County that had multiple sightings on their property. And one sighting they had was during a storm, that they heard this thing was making a lot of noise outside, as like a child would if you're out in the rain. You sit there and you jump around, you make noise because you're playing, and they felt that this animal was doing the same thing, and it was going up towards the Packard Ridge, up towards where their home was. And the next morning, they went out there and they had their brother with them, and they found this partial handprint, which their brother was the one that made the casting for it. What's so kind of unique about this is that the fingers are very short and stubby. As we can see here on the index finger, it is flattened, but you can see the dermal ridges going around, and it's going into a swirl motion. As we go down the finger, you can see where the muscle in the finger is being pressed out as it's putting its hand down to climb upwards. It's pressing the muscle out. It's expanding muscle that's in the fingers. There's an indentation here, which I believe is probably a tendon in the finger that's expanding out as the finger is being curled for the push-up motion. And the finger here, the ball of the finger is being pushed outwards also, which you can see dermal ridge is there. Same for the pinky finger, You can see dermal ridges very well there, and the expansion of the muscle in the finger itself. Now, what's so unique about this is that it has fingernails also here, here, here. There's some dirt in there, but there is an indentation there where you can see where the fingernail itself does come over the finger. There is no thumb, mole, or print due to the fact the hand was over a limb that was on the ground. What it was basically put his hand over the pull itself upwards. So that's how we only got a half of a cast of a hand.
Oh my goodness. I would put this guy in a gorilla family. Gorilla has the longitudinal lines over here. Several researchers in the field of dermatoglyphics have studied how the ridge patterns form coming in from the two different sides of the hands. So they form sort of a pattern coming in from the thumb side and coming in from the little finger side. Right through here you can see in the kind of even in the dirt, so the ridges, well, they're slanting upwards, which is very much what you see in also human hands. In the palm area, the ridges tend to be vertical or longitudinal, going up and down the palm, where humans, under the fingers, they're curving back and forth generally, and through here, which is where the thumb would be over here, the ridges tend to swing down into the palm, sometimes curving back around. That would be human. The patterns that are visible here definitely fall into the more of a gorilla. And I need to find the one book with the lines, because it does have horizontal lines here. And they look like crease lines rather than someone had etched them in here, so I feel they look real. There's a very animalistic shape to the fingers. The bent of them, the way they're bent every which way, kind of bending kind of even here, even though they're reaching into the earth, the way that the finger bends at the very end. Interesting in the idea of reading palmistry. It has a very low set little finger, which would add kind of a, it would add sensitivity to other people, but it would add kind of a shyness or maybe even a holding back. And the low set first finger would add a lot of not wanting to be an authority if it was a human, but staying away from dominating authority type people or situations. Not wanting to be dominated, but not wanting to dominate. So a loner. And the simian line, oddly enough, does have this line going straight across, which is how when humans have it, they call it the simian line. I guess if I were to try to think of it as abnormal, then as somebody like man-made, then somebody would have had to carve something out that would have a very leathery texture, that would have the ridges in it, that would press under pressure. And there is a pressing, you can see the little fingers pushed against the side of something, pushing the bulge of the little finger, the tip there, the pad. This pattern on the ring finger, if it's real and not based on the way the plaster dried, it's not human. It's not human in its shape at all, because the human ridge patterns are like arches, which will go back and forth across, or they can be like a loop that can come in around from one side or even the other side, back and forth, or a whorl going around in a circle. double loops, there's variations. This one, the ridges are very horizontal. I could see them come up kind of here and go straight up, and there's some that come in here and they run into this area and kind of dead end. But under this area is more similar to human. Actually, it's a mix. I can see the ridges go this way and swerve and go up, which isn't human. Humans' ridges don't do that. So this isn't a human hand, or at least it's not human in the sense of the ridges that humans tend to have, where the patterns don't form. Well, here's a little finger, so it'd be like that. But look, the proportion's about the same there. You see that? I definitely feel it's an animal. It's not human. But I think it was something alive. Gosh, I'd hate to be made a fool of.
What struck me that was interesting, though, was the fact that at least they could discern that it was related to chimpanzee or gorilla group. You know, that we saw in the that's suggestive of some kind of primate.
But we're going to let our viewer evaluate for themselves what this could be.
Now, these so-called sounds, are they something that just happened once and then went away, or?
Well, in this instance, this was an event that began about, I think, 2 o'clock in the morning in that vicinity. And it was heard by several households or families on a road.
Sure.
That they contacted each other by telephone, and they heard it. So if we could, I guess we'll go ahead and listen to this tape.
both series of sounds were put together so that you could compare the quality and tone of the actual sounds. The local sample actually ran some 20 minutes but was edited down for brevity.
The persons that recorded this material have expressed to a friend of mine, an associate researcher, Chris Coffey, and myself, who we've interviewed the witnesses, they've expressed their suspicions of a Bigfoot situation in this area, and to discuss the issue further, they have recounted 50 years worth of suspected sightings of a Bigfoot type creature in the area. Whether all this is accurate or factual it remains to be determined, but there is precedent behind the recording to say this is a suspected Bigfoot issue. And so as a result, what these people have done is they've taken this audio recording and they present it. Here it is, a possible documentation to accompany the historical precedent of the reports. We are aware of a 1995 case, I believe that's the year, from the same locality, independent witness involved. We are also aware of some similar vocalizations also reported independently of that, even still from the same area.
Actually, an associate of our producer, Bob Leibold, while talking on the phone with Bob, Bob had the vocalizations playing, and his associate was quite startled to recognize the howl as something she had heard, I think, some 15 or 16 years ago locally. Again, a very strange sound. Whatever the source may be, though, it's not something we can really draw to a definite conclusion until we bag a Bigfoot, so to speak.
Paul Johnson in 1997 took me up to the place in Westmoreland County, just above Apollo, on the opposite side of Apollo, on the other side of Kiskiminegas River. And he said, well, there was a sighting up there last month, let's go up and look. He said, I'll take you with me because you don't get lost. So, so he took me up to the highest point in the county of that area. And we were walking around up there, and I said, well, where'd this creature come across here at? And he said, over there. It came across right across the ridge. And he saw it from the farmhouse. And so I was looking around, and I said, well, let's look for tracks. So he was looking around. Even then, he might find some impression. And Paul, he went down to the left, down toward Apollo, looked down over the hillside. And I noticed the grass. It was flattened out like something large had laid down. And there was patches of dirty black hair there all through the grass. And so I got down on my knees and I started going through this hair, and I noticed to the right of it there was like something had taken its hands and piled grass up in a hump. And there was a hole underneath the grass, and there was a little tiny fetus skull of a lowland gorilla there. Well, I knew what it was when I saw it. But I took the skull down to the Pittsburgh Zoo, to the anthropology department, and I walked in there and I asked the girl, I said, now, I have this skull, I know what it is, I need you to verify it. And she said, well, let's see it. So I pulled it out, and I opened it up, and I told her, I said, I want you to verify this, what this is. So I don't like to touch it, but she said, well, that's a skull of a lowland gorilla fetus. It was probably born dead. It was she just discarded it. And she said, what part of Africa did you find this? And I said, it wasn't Africa, it was Pennsylvania. She about fell over. I said, I found it in Westmoreland County. It's this portion here where the black is the hair and the skin. And they'll probably take a section of that. Okay, right here. That's where it would have gone up in the spinal cord area. This is the first and only bone in the back of the neck before the shoulder blades, because their head isn't up like ours. Excuse me, it sits right on top of the shoulders. Okay, then the bone ridges here on the back of the head, the skull, and the top of the skull support the muscles for the jaws in the front of the face. And that's the front portion of the skull. That'd be where the face would have been. And there's where the ridges are. I've never seen this in any other skulls, and I pick them up all the time and collect them.
Robert Del France in Pennsylvania found a skull that was very interesting. The sagittal ridge comes up here. What I find very interesting is on Mr. Francis, also I mentioned, he has another piece that comes up this way. But what's also interesting is that it cuts off right at this point here, so it doesn't have a face to his skull that he has, which what we are missing is this whole complete from the brow down to where the teeth are is what's missing on the skull that he has. So we have some indication of what this thing may look like as a young adult or baby. If you were to put the whole body together with this skull, we are definitely looking at a animal that would probably stand about 10 feet, weigh about 800 pounds. And this is probably what we have roaming the state of Ohio.
Clearly, this is an inexhaustible topic of conversation. And of course, just like with UFOs, the final evidence is going to come down to recovering a Bigfoot, either alive or dead. And when that day comes, somebody's going to be very embarrassed.
Or if that day comes.
Or if that day comes.